happens when a woman stops performing and starts receiving. If you've listened to this podcast before, you've probably heard me talk about the 3 pillars of better sex: communication, empowerment, and pleasure skills. Today's conversation touches on empowerment and, of course, pleasure skills. One of the things that I've noticed is many women have spent years taking care of everyone else. They're capable, responsible, successful, but when it comes to receiving pleasure, support, and intention, this is where they might struggle. I am so excited because this is what my fabulous guest, Patricia, and I are going to talk about tonight. So, welcome to the Better Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Katz, certified tantric educator, dominatrix, and relationship guide for over 20 years. This is where we have real conversations about sex and relationships, the kind that help you to explore what's real and possible and actually works for you in sex so that you can have the sex life of your dreams with the person you love on your terms. I truly believe that a happier world is a safer world and a sexier world. Before we dive in, a quick reminder that we talk openly about sex, relationship, intimacy, desire on this podcast. So, some of these episodes might not be appropriate for all ages or listening environments. If you're enjoying these conversations, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And most importantly, share this podcast with somebody that you think will enjoy it. I want to support you in having the best sex of your life with the person you love, so I want to invite you to book a sexy reset call using the link in the show notes. Goodness, that was a lot. So today I am chatting with Patricia, founder of PleasureLit, the best-selling author of the PleasureLit Way, host of one of the top podcast, PleasureLit with Patricia, and an award-winning pleasure educator. I am so excited that you are here with me today. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very honored and excited to be here.
So, first question, pleasure, sex. How did you get here? What inspires you to talk about it?
Didn't we all got here in this kind of ways, one or the other? So I have been diving deep into pleasure and specifically pleasure for women in the last, I would say, 8-9 years after I have left the DV relationship, the marriage, and really reclaimed my self-love, reclaimed my body safety, and reclaimed my pleasure. And then from there on, it just started to really go deep and wide into all areas that are affecting pleasure, or pleasures affecting every other area of life, which basically means when we are in our pleasure and are deeply connected with our pleasure and live from our pleasure, it changes really how we live, love, lead, and relate. So it's really connected to everything that we do.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask a few more questions in this place here. So when you say pleasure, what are you talking about? What do you mean by that? I mean, it's a big word. So what is the PleasureLit way?
The PleasureLit Way. So pleasure for me is not just the bedroom pleasure. Pleasure is everything that is related to feeling this aliveness, feeling this warmth, feeling these expansions, that joy, that happiness, that deeper connection to self, and that love that you have. There are different kinds of pleasure, actually. So there could be the physical pleasure, obviously, the one that's in the bedroom, the touch, but we also have pleasure that is pleasure through looking at something, the beauty of it, pleasure through social connection that we have, the laughter. And what I specifically speak into, which PleasureLit, is somatic pleasure. And somatic pleasure is the felt pleasure, the one that we actually feel in our body, the one that you can't perform and you can't think your way into it because it actually happens in the body. And that only happens in the body. You only notice it and you only feel it when you're actually feeling safe in the body to receive that beautiful, delicious sensation.
Mm. So you're talking about sensations and pleasure within the body, and I thought it was really interesting. You just said that we can't feel those things unless we feel safe. Can you say more about that?
So something that is very much connected to somatic pleasure or the felt pleasure is that we need to open ourselves up to receive it. And we can only receive it when our nervous system is in a regulated state, when we are not in our fight flight, when we are not busy running around, rushing through life. We can't actually feel ourselves. We can't feel our body. We can't feel those sensations. For that, we need to be in a regulated state. We need to be in a state where our nervous system knows, okay, there is no threat. There is just safety. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm opening up to receive. And that's when we start noticing those feelings, those sensations. And that's where we can drop deeper into it. This is why we really open up more when we take our time to slow down, and not just slowing down, but using our five senses of what can we see, what can we hear, what can we smell, using breath, movement, sound, touch to really drop into our body to start feeling safe, to open up, to receive those sensations.
So the you just mentioned a couple of different things that are often mentioned when we are kind of like disassociating or when we want to, remind ourselves that we're safe. And I'm wondering if you could slow down a moment and kind of walk us back through them again.
Yes. So when we, for example, a really great question that I get is a woman who is intimate with her partner.
Hmm.
And she says, he's doing the right things and it's really great, but I just can't switch off my mind. I'm in my mind, I'm doing the shopping list. I'm already thinking about what I need to cook for the family, and the washing still needs to be done. I just can't relax into it. I can't just feel him. I can't be present with him. And that is when we are so much in our mind, when our nervous system had no time to actually adjust and transition into that intimacy situation. So something that helps to transition is to slow things down, to really drop into our body, to use our breath, to use a few conscious breath of breathing in through the nose, exhale, release. And as you do that, you already start to get out of your mind and actually into your body. You start focusing on your breath. You start
Hmm.
focusing on, where do I actually feel that breath? Where do I feel any tightness, any tension? Can I breathe into that space? And then eventually you can use some movement. Maybe your body likes to move in a certain way. Your body actually gives you guidance if you start listening and honoring it. And the more you do that, the more you can drop into it. And if you just give yourself, let's say 10 minutes to really let your body guide you in the moving, in the sounding, maybe something wants to come out. Maybe it's a, this long exhale where you just feel like, it's been a day. And the more you can do that, solo and partnered, the more you get out of that mind and actually into your body. And then you forget about your to-do list. You're not thinking about it because you are fully present with yourself. And from there, you can start including touch. And even if that's just light touch, you start to feel those sensations, you notice them. And eventually you can use your five senses with, what can you smell? You might smell your partner. You might smell one of the diffuser scents that I love that smells really beautiful and activating. Maybe it's a beautiful pleasure essential oil that helps you. That touch is a felt sense. Maybe you also like to look at something beautiful and delicious. Maybe it's your partner who looks very sexy. Maybe it's yourself, your reflection in the mirror, the way you're just like, oh, hello there. So start flirting a little bit. And it's just before you know it, the world, whatever happens out there,
Hmm.
doesn't matter because you're enjoying yourself. You're really fully present with yourself. And this is then the transition from that nervous system of, I need to do all these things, to, I'm here.
Mm.
I'm here, and that's all that matters right now. And now from here on, I'm just gonna let my body guide me. And you start exploring without any expectations, no outcome, just being fully present, and start to enjoy what comes next.
Well, it's funny, I noticed, I mean, as you started sounding, it was like, "Oh, that sounds really good." And I noticed my own, I certainly noticed my own turn on, but I also noticed that I started to breathe a little deeper and, notice those things as well. And I think that's something that we don't talk enough about is that we are co-regulating beings, right? Whether it is, a group of women getting together or actually even I would imagine like anybody getting together. It's like as we start to breathe together, we just end up in that connective place. And I hear more and more about different kinds of co-regulation. Sometimes people will talk about like, oh, that is something that you can do for your child or for yourself, or for your partner. But I just thought that was really amazing how quickly it happened, just with you bringing your attention to yourself. Right, and I think
Yes.
that is something that we don't give enough credit about, that, like, the more that we can be in our own bodies, the more that we can be in our own pleasure, right, it brings our partners in. Um, I don't know if this is something that you hear, but, like, often I'll hear, I work with couples a lot, and it'll be like, he's trying to please her, she's trying to please him, and nobody's in the receiving mode of, like, being in pleasure, and so it's like they keep missing each other, and I'm wondering if that's something that you could speak to.
Yes, I also want to just connect on what you just said about one person being in their pleasure and co-regulation.
Mhm,
That is exactly why I say when you are in your pleasure, the way you live, lead, care, relate, like it all changes. Because as a mother, for myself, living from my pleasure, as soon as I reclaimed that,
mhm,
being in that regulated nervous system and being deeply connected to my body, that automatically regulates the whole household. If I'm in a dysregulated nervous system, if I'm rushing, if I'm on edge, everybody else is on edge. But as soon as I'm dropping in, and that's why it really beautifully works with partners as well. If you are a woman who's like, oh, but my partner, he doesn't want to like drop in, he doesn't want to really connect. If you are doing that for yourself, you will bring him into it. He will get, because you start radiating this delicious energy, that delicious pleasure energy, and others want to be in that field. So you will draw him in. And before you know it, he might be very much open to, okay, I'm going to do some breathing with you. Okay, I'm going to do some hip circling with you. And before you know it, you're in this yum position and you're just like moving with each other, breathing together, syncing it. And it's just going to go from there. You will draw him in. It's about really that deeper connection to self.
mhm. Oh my god, so good. I'm curious, like, what do you think stops people slash, particularly women from allowing themselves, well, I wouldn't even go allowing, but what stops women from having more pleasure?
They usually self-abandon, like they abandon themselves. That is really what's stopping them. They eventually down the track have learned very early on, probably, that either pleasure is unsafe or that they are too much, they're needy, they're greeting, or they've been shamed. They eventually grow up as the good girl because that was part of my journey. I was growing up as the good girl and then it translated into high achieving, people pleasing,
Mhm,
high ambitious, high functioning. So, not doing anything wrong, attending to everybody else's needs but my own. I was then also the caretaker, looking after my family, being the responsible one everyone was relying on. And with that, I shut myself off from my pleasure because I was attending to everybody else's needs before mine. And if you start overriding your body again and again and again, your own desires, your own wants, needs, the boundaries, they get so low in volume that you don't take note of them anymore. So you disconnect from your body. And once you're disconnected, you just function. You get to a point where you just do things and the next thing and the next thing, you're just like, but is that it? Like, I'm sure there's more. Like, this can't be it. This can't be life. Like, I don't feel alive. I don't feel that pleasure. That's when it then really starts to hit, where you think, okay, what's happening? How can I access more pleasure? And then that is really about returning back home into your body, to connect with your body again, to start feeling safe in your body, because all these good girl conditionings and people pleasing, high functioning, achieving, that are all just survival patterns from the nervous system. And when we can regulate back into our body safety, we start to open up again to actually receive pleasure, compliments, rest, all of it. Love, money, wealth.
So so you were moving along as the good girl, and then and that was a coping strategy that you learned young. And then what was it that was that, if you don't mind me asking, like what happened for you to kind of go like, oh, this good girl thing is just not, it's not cutting it, it's not working, it's not getting me what I need.
That happened after I've left my DV marriage, and I
Mhm.
started to reclaim my body, my happiness, my life, my everything. That's when I started looking at it, because in the bedroom, for example, at that time, I was pleasing everybody else. I was doing the things to just surrender and to please, didn't ask for what I actually desired and how I liked it. I wasn't able to speak up. And even if I set boundaries, I'm like, if you could, yeah, but maybe not this. Oh, yeah, no, forget it. It's okay.
Mm.
Not actually standing up for myself.
Mhm.
Where after I've left, I really started to reclaim it by reclaiming my voice, really exploring what is it actually that I desire, not what I've been doing for years for someone else. What do I want? So starting to explore, to realize, oh, okay, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. Starting my own like pleasure lists of like likes, dislikes, just starting to explore. But then also, where are my boundaries? How can I speak my boundaries? How can I reclaim saying no without apologizing, without finding 5 reasons to make it suitable for them to hear. But just saying no is actually a full sentence. So no, I don't need to explain any further than that. To start to really claim that and to find that body safety. And then through that, I was able to receive. And something that I've learned, what you just mentioned with couples, where she wants to please him, he wants to please her. And in the end, no one's really accessing because no one's in the receiving. What I realized over the years, someone said that to me, was a compliment. It's very similar to the compliment. When you receive a compliment, oh, your hair looks so beautiful. And you're just like, oh, what, that? Like, I didn't wash it today. You just destroyed his compliment.
Mm.
He actually wanted to give you a compliment. He gets pleasure out of giving you pleasure and you receiving pleasure. But now that you destroyed that compliment, he didn't get the pleasure. So you not just took away your own pleasure, you also took away his pleasure. And when I realized that, I'm like, ah. And when you translate that to the bedroom, the partner wants to know what turns you on in the way it turns you on. They want to bring you pleasure. They want to assist you in your pleasure. And if you're not speaking up, if you are not telling them how to in the way you like it, you're not just taking away your own pleasure, but also his pleasure. So
Right.
if you are communicating the way you like it, the way you love to receive love and pleasure, then they can give that to you. And in the end, then everybody will receive pleasure, and it will be a loop of pleasure, giving pleasure, receiving pleasure, and giving pleasure. So that actually makes so much more sense when you then lean into that.
Absolutely. And I just want to go back for just a second, because part of what you're pointing to is a loop here. I give pleasure to you, you receive it, that gives me pleasure, and so there's more of it, right? And then the other part of that is, if I don't receive, then it gets shut down and then there's less of it. And I think, that's that place where people start ending up being kind of the roommate syndrome or whatever. Is it's like we often miss those opportunities, and it's so easy. It is so easy to miss that opportunity. And I yeah, I'm just thinking, my partner had said something about the idea of doing foot massages with each other, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And but now's not the time, or something like that. And I watched him kind of, you
Mm.
know um And it's like, so then he was like, well, okay, we'll do it later. Right. And of course, later hasn't come because, it was sort of shut down in a weird way. But I was just thinking about that before we started this conversation, that really, keeping that loop, um, you know, well oiled and well, managed is super important. And then being able to come back to the things that do give you pleasure. And I'm curious, like, so you had a good girl phase. Did you have a bad girl phase?
Oh, I wouldn't say I took the whole, swing into the other side. It does happen sometimes on healing journey. I actually talked about that just recently on my podcast show as well, with someone who, where we dive deeper into how healing sometimes happens when you have been on one side and then you swing all the way to the other side to just find your edge.
Mhm.
I haven't swung that way that I have been doing all the bad girl. However, I did start to explore my edge in training as a professional dominatrix, just to really explore that part of, instead of surrendering, to actually
Mhm.
be more directional. And that part has helped me, the training course, to reclaim more of my voice, to reclaim more of my darker feminine, to really reclaim more of the one who speaks up, who sets her boundaries. And through that, I've actually learned more about the other side as well. So if we do go into like king plays, because I'm usually more submissive in the bedroom, but now I know also the other side of that. So to be able to explore both sides was really eye-opening and also very healing for me. There was a lot of reclaiming in that.
I love hearing that. I mean, I think kink and BDSM get a really bad rap because they can be so incredibly healing, because you're
Yes.
having the kinds of conversations about your wants, your desires, your needs, in theory, if you're negotiating well, these things are coming up and you get to actually talk about them. And when communicate in a way and somebody responds, it can be so healing. To
Yes,
be
yes.
heard, to be held. And I think, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me that, like, women, I'll just say women for the moment, but, like, women can be super powerful out in the world and want to be surrendered in the bedroom, or men for that matter. I've certainly worked with men who are super powerful out in the world and want to surrender. And it makes sense in a way that you actually need, for really deep surrender, in my infinite wisdom, for that really deep surrender, you need to have good solid boundaries. Right? And
Yes.
I'm not talking about the, like, here's the line boundaries. I'm talking about the, like, what do I need to feel safe enough so that I can connect with you deeply? And I think, it's like, how do I, and you were talking a little bit earlier, and I'm going to keep coming back to this because it's just something that's really been on my mind a lot, is what helps, women feel safe? And particularly this idea of, I don't know if you've run into it, but, like, oftentimes I'll notice that culturally and we use safety, "I don't feel safe," uh, could actually also be, "I'm really uncomfortable here. This is a really vulnerable spot." And I'm wondering if that's something that you've noticed, or that you see, like, what the difference between the 2 is.
Between the two of I feel unsafe and I just feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that is basically, like, for me personally, it is very much related to the nervous system response. So,
Mhm.
an unsafe nervous system response is very similar to, okay, this is discomfort. This is a reaction from the nervous system, which is exactly what the nervous system should be doing. It
Mhm.
should give you the alert of, hey, something is wrong, something is up. What the difference is between feeling fully unsafe and being stuck in that is that high functioning, high achieving, that chronic stress, that survival response where we are in that dysregulated nervous system, but we stay there. We're not coming back to regulation. And that's where it gets tricky, because that's where we completely disconnect from our body, where we can't really tap into our body anymore. Feeling that discomfort, or feeling like, whoa, he's just done something that that I'm not happy with. That is the same response, but it is an alert from the nervous system where we know, well, okay, we can listen to it, we can honor it, and we can do something to help us regulate and then communicate that. So we can then go back into the regulation of the nervous system and we can open ourselves up to pleasure again. So that could be with your partner, something happened where you were like, oh, I didn't like that. And then you regulate yourself, or co-regulation, you use your tools that you learn. And then after that, you have a communication, have that chat, that deeper chat and communication about it. And then you can find your way back together, and you can even open yourself up to pleasure afterwards. It's similar to having a fight where you have this makeup sex where you're just like, oh, it's so amazing, that sex. The makeup sex is awesome because you are in your body. When you are like heightened or something happens, and then you drop into your body and you start to connect and co-regulate, and then that leads into intimacy. That's really alchemy, isn't it? You have this pain, you have this discomfort, you have sadness, whatever it is that trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you're in your body, but you're noticing it. You're not just functioning and thinking that it's normal. So you're noticing it, you're regulating, you open yourself up to pleasure, you transmute that pain, grief, sadness into pleasure, you have sex, intimacy, and you might come out of this very nourished. And this is why some connect that with like, oh, the makeup sex is so awesome. Similar experience I had recently with crying, which then led into a self-pleasure session, which was really beautiful. But the difference is that is a normal nervous system response. This is like why I also... There's misinformation around the nervous system saying it needs to be calm all the time. Nervous system regulation doesn't mean it's a calm nervous system at all times. The nervous system is supposed to give you your full body yes, your full body no, so you can act on that. But if you get stuck in your dysregulation, that's why you disconnect from your body and can't notice anything. So that's the difference.
Thank you. I really love that. And so I'm curious, for you, what does a full body yes feel like?
Full body yes. Full body yes feels for me like I get this pull of excitement. So if someone tells me something and I lean into it, like my body's already like, oh yes, tell me more. Like I want to hear more, and I'm getting lit up. I have this smile on my face. I'm getting that warmth. I get that expansion. I get that pull of, ooh, this is exciting. And I'm already running scenarios in my mind of like, oh, this could be amazing. Oh, this could be amazing. It's just already like going somewhere. My no is, oh, like I'm taking a moment back, and then sometimes also like facial expression can tell you a lot. Sometimes like the mouth goes a bit down, and you just feel like a bit, okay. And then when I'm just then not sure, I then lean in, and when I start to then reason with myself, then I already know it's actually a no of my body, but my mind is like, yeah, but. And then I know, okay, so probably would look good on paper or sounds great, but my body is like, I don't think we want that. And then I reason with myself, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to make a decision here that's like, everybody come together. But that is like where I know it's not a full body yes.
So I know there's a lot of people who are just like, if it's not a full, if it's not a full fuck yes, don't do it. I'm curious, what your thought on that is.
I don't think we can go along with that at all times, because when we start to get outside of our comfort zone and start to explore, we are heading into unknown territory. And that usually gives you a little bit of a resistance, usually a little bit of self-doubt, usually a little bit of like, ooh, but what if? So sometimes we do need to get out of our comfort zone. It can't be always a full body, yes, I'm excited, I'm just going to jump this way. Sometimes like, that makes me curious. That makes me curious. I want to explore that, but I can also feel some resistance. That's something to work with. And I mean, we've got something similar with in the kink scenes as well. We've got our hard limits, soft limits, and we've got our green, all good to go. Some things are scenario dependent, mood dependent. For example, like anal play. I like anal play, but not every day. So there are days where I'm like, yeah, I'm all good to go. And then there are days like, no, it's not today.
Not today. I hear.
Yeah, so that's similar with our yes and no, or with where we can lead into. What we then have to be cautious, though, is that we don't start to manipulate other. So if it's in partner play, that if it's not a full body, yes, yes, but rather like, oh, I'm curious to explore it, but can we have a chat about that? Can we, explore that a little bit further first? Can we see where that might be going? Maybe it is not full anal. Maybe I would be open to just fingering, or just like, just starting to explore. So it's still not like full body yet straight up, but how about we open that conversation and then see where it leads to? And then I can lean a little bit more into what would be a yes there and what would be no.
Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, I like the idea of, so I like to say we've got our yes and our no and our let's try it. And
Ye-
again, it's sort of like, okay, so let's try the finger first and see how that goes, and then sort of move in incrementally.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I'm super curious. I'd love to hear more about your Dom training and like, how did you what was the yes? Was that a full body yes, or did you have to was that more of a let's try it?
Actually, when you just mentioned before the swing of the good girl, was it also the bad girl? I actually don't think the other side of the good girl is the bad girl as such. The
Mhm.
bad girl is just part of something that we can explore. And I wouldn't even call her bad girl. I would say there are different kind of energies that we can explore. We have got the primal, the wild
Mm,
woman energy. We have got the dominant energy. We've got the soft one, the nurture one, the more surrendering one. We've got the seductress one, like the one who likes to flirt and, is like really radiating that energy. So we've got different kinds of energies that we can explore. And from that good girl, I really opened up to explore all sorts of energies. So I tapped into my primal, into my wild one. I tapped into my more nurturing, softer one. And I also tapped into my dominant one, which was then exploring that professional dominatrix course. And I'm a person, I'm a woman who loves to go deep into training. So when something excites me, makes me curious, I want to know more about it. And the best source is usually being trained or do a training under someone who's really really radiates that energy and is really living it and is really embodying it and not just, you know, tells you something, but it's actually really it. And that's when I started to explore that course and
mhm,
that program. And it was really beautiful, even within the dominant, dominant woman energies. There's so many different energies as well. So you could be the queen archetype, you could be the mistress. There are so many different flavors, even in the dominance as well, which I tapped into a few and I was just like, yeah, that's not it. Doesn't really work for me. I'm not feeling lit up by that. But I found like one or two, energies in my dominant. I'm like, oh yeah. And that actually very much aligns with the life that I've been living, because from that good girl, I also became or transitioned into that highly independent. I don't need no man, and I'm single mom for the last 8 years. Run my own business. I pretty much dominate my life, my business, motherhood, everything else. So the bedroom is then kind of like the balance where I can fully surrender. I'm like, yes, someone else is now leading, not me. Time out here.
I wanna go back to what you said about finding somebody who radiates the thing that you wanna learn, because you certainly radiate living pleasure.
Thank you.
And, I would love to hear, about your book and your programs, and, I'm also super curious about, I know that you have done a lot around, sex toys, and, so I've got questions about that too. But first of all, I really want, to, hear more about your books and your book and what you're up to in terms of your courses and such.
First of all, thank you. I received that compliment with pleasure. Oh. um, it's such a beautiful just a beautiful way to receive, to hear others. And it's been the last year, I would say, that a lot of people, men and women, come closer to me and say, how do you do it? Like, what's your secret? You radiate such a like sensual, pleasure empowered energy. I just want to be in that field, or I want to be like that. Like, what did you do? And I'm just like, well, I found the way. I found the PleasureLit Way, which is a way to live from my pleasure, to open myself up to all these portals of pleasure. So the PleasureLit Way is basically the way of living PleasureLit, which is 4 pathways to pleasure. And the first one is embodied self-care and self-love, because I could teach you all the pleasure techniques now, but if you're not deeply connected to your body, if you are not in love with your body and looking after your body, which is your temple, then the pleasure techniques won't work. They won't be as beautiful and delicious, because there's something really important missing, which is the connection to your body. And then I go into how you can open up to different self-care, embodied self-care opportunities to open up your portals to pleasure, because pleasure starts with you. It's already within you. And the more you can tap into the connection with self, the more you can open up all those portals to pleasure. The second one is the intention and mindfulness. The more we can bring ourselves into the present moment, then we go into connections with others, lovers, children, family, money, universe itself, tantra, all of those. And then pleasure exploration and play, which includes the pleasure toys, where we can start exploring kink, BDSM, more tantric practices, all these delicious ones that help you to deepen and widen it. But it all starts with actually awakening your pleasure in your body. So that guides you really through that beautifully along my own journey, how I discovered that, with tips and all of that. And then from there, what I'm launching now is the PleasureLit Woman. The PleasureLit Woman is my signature online program, and that actually is the opposite of the good girl conditioning. Because the good girl, once you can really release her, we can transmute all those blockages into pleasure, and you can embody the PleasureLit Woman. And the PleasureLit Woman is basically when you live the PleasureLit way and do then also identity work. If you also then do the inner parts work, where we explore your mother wounds and father wounds, we explore your feminine and your masculine energy, because you've got both inside of you. We explore more about the connection with self, or your inner child. We're going to really explore and face those blockages that got you stuck and disconnected. And then we transmute that. We're going to rewire your nervous system, and then we're going to reclaim, and then we're going to radiate, because it's got 4 stages of PleasureLit Woman. Regulate, rewire, reclaim, radiate. So it really takes you through that journey. It's not a course that you just watch and do and then that's it. It's a program. So there's work. And it's transformational. And it's just like, I'm so lit up by it, because that is my own journey of transmuting it. And I'm so looking forward to the women really moving from that disconnected woman to the PleasureLit woman and embody that delicious, radiant pleasure energy. So yeah, that's what I'm really, really lit up by.
Oh, I love that. And certainly you are in the radiate phase of things. I just want to send a little love and blessing back to that good girl, because I think, we need good girls. And, as you said, it's a stage of life. It's a place where we learn from. It's a strategy that it gets us so far. And, but I do want to just like bless her and send her some love. And, as you said, allow for the transmutation. And, I love what you were saying about, or what I really heard was there's a spectrum of, yes, there's good girl at one side, and but bad girl isn't necessarily the other side. And I think in tantra we often talk about dark and the dark side and the light side, and we often talk about like how you go far enough in one direction and it becomes the other. And that there's, the spectrum, and we need all of these different parts of ourselves. So just want to send a blessing back to.
And that doesn't mean one is better than the other. That doesn't mean that either. And within the PleasureLit Woman program, we actually tap into all these energies as well, these pleasure energies. And it's really about starting to explore. And the good girl, we are actually, when we release her, we are not saying, oh, you need to go, and we kick her out. We're actually thanking her because she's brought us to the stage where we are. And it is just really about giving her a space where she's heard and seen, but she's not running the show anymore, because now we are running the show. We are taking over, and we are going somewhere different. We're going to start to lead our life different, and we're going to live from our pleasure and really start radiating that delicious energy, where she's still being heard, but
Mhm.
it is a different essence. We are now tapping into all of these, like you said, with the light, the dark, and the light. None is like better than the other, or the feminine and the masculine energy. We need both. Both of them are good, and we can tap into both of them as well in a healthy way.
Absolutely. And it was funny as you're talking, it's like, oh, so you kind of go from, as you incorporate all of these things, you become your grown ass woman who steps into the pleasure lit way.
Yes.
Uh, so, throughout I mean, I know you've explored with lots of different things, but I'm curious, what are some of the things that surprised you about your journey?
Oh, what surprised me? I don't actually think I had big surprises,
Hmm.
because I really stopped expecting and predicting outcomes. I just really let myself explore and experience. And I think that is also part of my being. It's part of my human design as well, and astrology and all of this magic and all of that. It's like I'm a responsible adventurer. And I'm just like, that couldn't be any better said. Like, responsible but an adventurer. So I love to explore, I love to experiment. And eventually what I had was one moment where I really took a step back, and I'm like, where's this all going? Like,
Mm.
I started as a PT, fitness nutrition, started helping women lose weight, realized, all that they want is actually love their own body and love themselves, and transition into becoming a self-love coach with mindset. And then eventually, because I was so much in my masculine, so much doing, and not tapping into my feminine, I had a yoga class where I started crying at the end of it. And I'm like, oh, no, I need to explore yoga, and became a yoga teacher. Became a yoga teacher to step into more my feminine, actually. That was like kind of like the gateway. And through that, I became a breathwork facilitator, then a meditation teacher. Then I discovered Tantra and somatic sex coaching, because I went down the rabbit hole with exploring pleasure toys and women reaching out, oh, how can I experience more pleasure? And I'm like, well, now I'm going to do my somatic sex coaching course. And through that, with my energetics, I'm like, Tantra, why did I not come around Tantra before? And it just like went on and on. I'm just like, geez, like, where's that all going? And then it made sense. And eventually it made sense because it was all leading to PleasureLit. It was all leading into, because it's all connected.
Mm.
They're all gateways. They're all gateways to the deeper connection to ourselves. They're all portals to our pleasure. They're all helping us to feel embodied, to be deeply connected, to be able to live from our pleasure and to experience more pleasure. And that's how PleasureLit got created.
I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, gosh, I I'm curious in terms of, so your journey, which has, clearly been deep and wide, and um, your ability to bring it to people, to women, and by extension to their partners. And I'm curious, like, so if you were to say, like, this is something that kind of stands in the way of people stepping into pleasure, what might that be?
What's in their way to step into their pleasure? That can really depend on what the core reason underneath is. It could be shame. It could be something that happened along the way where they shut themselves off, where they disconnected, where they started to believe they're not worthy of it.
Mhm.
That's what's usually in the way. And that is usually something that you can start exploring by really taking the time to tune inwards, to explore, when did that start? Like, how did I feel 20 years ago? How did I feel 10 years ago? Where was that moment when it started that I disconnected? And then starting to explore that, and then finding your way back home. So that is really something that is basically the journey. Because if you're just throwing in of oh yeah, just do this. This will help you with pleasure. This will help you with pleasure. Sure, but you still have the underlying beliefs. You still have that conditioning, that survival response from the nervous system. You still need to meet it. You still need to explore where is it coming from and can I let it go? You don't have to like go into big trauma work, but you're going to have to release or transmute and rewire that part of you.
Mm, thank you. Now, I know that you have explored hundreds of different toys and tools and thingamabobs and whatchamacallums. And I'm curious, like, if you could talk a little bit about that, because I mean, I have to say, true confessions here. I'm a little afraid of some of the toys. Like, I'm never sure. Like, I think part of it is like back in the day, I had this very tantric attitude towards like not using toys because they would mess with my energy field. Um, so, but I've used a couple, I've used a couple of things here and there, but I'm really curious about your journey through toys, and if you'd share a little bit about that, and any suggestions you have for people.
There's a lot of misconception around that of using toys. Like first one is it's going to replace a man. So if you're using toys, how is a man going to compete with that? Like he's not going to be able to give you the pleasure anymore. So when I started to go really deep into pleasure toy reviews and exploring, I own now over 400 pleasure toys and tools. I was known as the pleasure toy queen, and I was doing reviews every week. So I was really, really deeply into that. And when I posted that on social media, I did receive comments like this, like, oh, what was the comment? It's like throwing a hot dog down the hole. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And then I got this comment a few times and then I asked someone, it's like, what does that mean? It means like you're so stretched out that if they would put it in, they wouldn't feel anything anymore. I'm just like, oh my God, you're joking. Like, do they know how that works? I mean, I pushed out a baby and I can still have intimacy with someone and I feel everything. So yeah, it's just, there's a lot of misconception around toy use, that it would be replacing a partner, which it absolutely does not. Toys are not a replacement for a human being. It's same with AI and humans. There is a difference. When you're with a human, there's a human touch, there's a human energetics. It is a different experience than with a pleasure toy that vibrates or does funny, weird things. There are different pleasures that you can explore through that because obviously they can vibrate or they can clitoral suction or they have got multiple features or all of these things. So another misconception is that they desensitize you. So you should throw out all your vibrators or you should be using this dildo crystal. I actually went down the path of exploring that and I realized because a lot of them say, I only have the natural inside me crystal is actually not as good to use internally as well. So you should actually use a condom over the crystal, which I then found, why would I then use the crystal? Or I'll just use it externally or use it within you in your field if you want to utilize that energetics. But it's not necessarily better to use internally. Same with lubes and oils. And when there's a lot of misconception around that as well.
Hmm.
But that was one of the reasons why I don't recommend Yoni X anymore, why I don't use crystal toys at all, because it was really hard. And I reached out to crystal like companies and all of that, and I got weird misinformation. So it was all a bit tricky. And eventually what I discovered is really like premium silicone, borosilicate glass, stainless steel. So if you cover with these three, you're good. If any like TPR, TPE, vinyl, rubber, it's not great because you can't clean it
Hmm.
like 100%. I actually have a complete online course on pleasure toys and tools. And I've also got on my podcast, PleasureLit with Patricia, a pleasure toy guide for anyone who's interested in learning a little bit more about that. But desensitization, surely it can happen if you go really strong with these powerful ones externally on your clit, which, by the way, I'm not a huge fan of, but other women are, because it's just quickly oversensitizing me. And then I'm just like, whoa, that's too much. Yeah, it can desensitize for a short moment, but sensitization, like, it comes back. It comes back. It's not that it desensitizes you and then you can't feel anything with your partner anymore. However, what is suggested though is that you don't get stuck in a certain technique with one certain toy to do it in the same way every time, again and again and again and again. So if I self-pleasure with that one specific toy in the same way over and over and over and over again, the body adapts to it. So if then I have normal intimacy, I'm not saying normal, but have intimacy with a partner, and let's say it is fingering, it's oral, it is not the same as the toy, then I might struggle to really open up to the experience and to experience deep pleasure there, because my body has adapted to that same toy, same kind of motion. Similar to guys who self-pleasure in that death grip, and they're really like, yeah, and they're like monkey position up in the front. They have to be really quick and there has to be like lots of friction. If they don't start to actually retrain them, they will look for that quick bam, 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 bam in intimacy to actually ejaculate.
Right.
But they can train themselves to open up to different kind of orgasms and stimulation to then be able to ejaculate and have pleasure with the partner through different techniques. So that's all of these things that I've started to explore while going deep into somatic sex coaching and pleasure toys. But yeah, there's so much. I could like go on and on and on about that.
Well, I so appreciate that, and we will definitely put in the show notes your where they can find your toy guide and all of the other things that we've mentioned today. And I'm just so excited that you're here. So we are getting towards the end of our time, so I'm going to invite you to just take a moment and. If there's one thing that you want people to get out of this conversation, what might that be?
Pleasure is your birthright. That is like the start of it. So pleasure is your birthright. And then I would really like to let you know, listening, watching, that the way back to access your pleasure is through connecting with your body, to giving yourself permission to come back home to it, to open yourself up to feel safe in your body, to deepen that relationship. The most important relationship you will ever have in your life is with yourself
Mm,
and with your body, because your body really runs everything. Your nervous system runs so much. So if you can come back to your body and deepen that connection to yourself and start living from your pleasure, it will shift everything in your life, motherhood, business, relationships.
mm, so good. So, where can people find you, and what is your best way to connect? What is your favorite way to connect with folks?
So everyone can explore all my offers and all my free offers and everything really on my website, pleasurelit.com, which is pleasure and then LIT in one word. Your pleasure lit from within. And the best way to connect with me is really through Substack, and that is pleasurelit.patricia.substack.com, where when you also sign up there for my email newsletter there, you will get access to my 1 hour free PleasureLit workshop that helps you to, get back into your body.
Right. And I love we were talking about this earlier before we hit play that, that free course is something that you can come back to over and over again when you need to relax, when you need to de-stress, and it's just such a beautiful offering. Thank you so much for joining me today here, and for those of you who are listening, please share this conversation with somebody that you know, be they good girls, bad girls, grown ass women, and everything in between. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It helps us get out there more, which helps us get better information into a world that really needs to learn more about having sex, better sex. And so, Yes, I just want to say, sex is not magic. It is a practice, and I invite you to keep showing up for yours. Thank you so much, Patricia, and
Yeah.
bye for now.